Hey, welcome back to Banter Pirates. Hope everyone is doing well. These are pretty disturbing times that we're coming into right now. I really don't know what's going to be happening. Everything is escalating, tensions are rising. But today we're going to listen to a conversation from Douglas McGregor. It's pretty disturbing how spot on he is. And it's also a little disturbing when somebody has this much information and insight as to what's happening in the world right now.
I was trying to think of a previous presidency where we'd seen something like this. But if you go back to 1968, when Richard Nixon was running for office, LBJ didn't do anything to harm Nixon. He did everything in his power to be as honest and forthright with Nixon as he could be, admitting that he was essentially unsure what to do next. And so this is really something radically new. The last time a president left office with an unmitigated disaster in the Oval Office behind him was Buchanan. And of course, he bequeathed to Abraham Lincoln the Civil War.
Well, there you go. You got to go back that far to see somebody that's as much of an asshole as Joe Biden.
You got to go back that far. But Buchanan was not mendacious. This is pure mendacity. This is malevolence. This is a deliberate attempt to subvert the election. You know, we're unhappy. You're going to come in here and you think you're going to make peace. Well, we're going to fix you. To some extent.
Isn't that such a ridiculous way of thinking about it? So they don't want Trump to make them look so bad because basically this war has been going on for 1,000 days and they haven't done anything to escalate. All they're doing is feeding money to Ukraine. There's nothing positive. Where Trump has always said, I'm gonna get this war stopped. And they are trying, I think what they're trying to do right now is not be solely embarrassed because they haven't been able to do anything except what they've been doing, which is nothing.
And I've looked at this. It doesn't fit the definition of treason per se, but I think it's pretty damn close. And President Putin earlier today signed a new description of the use of nuclear weapons in Russian strategy. In other words, he's changed the approach, saying that effectively, if we're attacked in overwhelming numbers by conventional forces across our border, whether these are manned or unmanned systems like the ATACMS missiles or cruise missiles, we reserve the right to use essentially a nuclear weapon to strike the territory from which the attack was launched. Now, this was not an overwhelming attack. What Zelensky did was launch 6 ATACMS missiles.
Yeah, at close to almost $900,000 a piece. You're welcome.
5 of which the Russians successfully intercepted and shot down. The 6th struck near a location in Russia called Karachev, where there is a stockpile of weapons, but it didn't hit the stockpile. It simply started a small fire, which was quickly put out. Now, Vladimir Putin and the Russian state want to put an end to this war. There's no question about it. They would like it to end. And they know that President Trump is certainly willing to try and end it. So this gives them an incentive to exercise more restraint until he arrives. But the bad news is that I think this attack is probably going to trigger the use of weapons to destroy, frankly, what remains of Ukraine.
This is proof that through all this stuff, he's also like, you can understand that the Democrats in our White House don't give 2 shits about all of us in this country or our service people serving overseas that are going to have to step in and potentially lose their lives because Joe Biden's an asshole.
We know that over the weekend, they already struck the power grid in Western Ukraine, which means that the people in the West, as well as the East, in the areas controlled by the Ukrainian government right now, are all going to freeze through the winter, which is a disaster. Of course, they just said they were going to cut off natural gas to Austria as well. The bottom line is this could trigger the thing that everybody says they don't want to happen, which is a major advance by Russian forces, which are already advancing as we speak here very, very rapidly, all the way to the Dnieper River. Because if you're in the Russian general staff and you look at the map, you know that President Trump doesn't come into office until 21 January, and you have this maniac in Kiev who seems to be determined with his friends in Washington to start a war that could. Now, at the same time, you've got Russian foreign minister and Russian military leaders traveling all over the region. They have a huge presence in Iran, but that's not the only location where they are right now. They've effectively covered the whole region. And if anything, we're seeing an alliance of all the states in the region today, including Turkey, against Israel. Remember, the Turks have broken relations with Israel, which is something that, for whatever
And then we stand with Israel, of course, which means we're against all of those nations as well.
reason, nobody in Washington expected. And the Turks have made it very clear that they will turn on the Kurds, whom we are pushing to war with Turkey, in the hope that that will divert the Turks from taking any action against Israel. Well, that's absurd. They can go through the Kurds in a matter of weeks and annihilate everything in northern Iraq that threatens them, and they still have hundreds of thousands of troops left over that they can pour into Lebanon. And remember, they've got millions of refugees on their soil now. They've got another 1.5 million refugees coming out of Lebanon because the Israelis are now trying to do to Lebanon what they've done in Gaza. And there's every reason to expect the Israelis to do in Palestine, that is the West Bank, what they've done in Gaza. The Egyptians have now formally met with the Turks, the Egyptian military. They will cooperate. And Jordan is close to exploding. There are 11.2 million Palestinian Arabs living in Jordan who formerly lived in Israel. They are on the verge of exploding. So the entire region is a powder keg. And what we're doing in Russia signals to Russia that they have no incentive whatsoever to cooperate with us in the Middle East to prevent a wider regional war. On the contrary, they're now positioned to do enormous damage to us and Israel in the Middle East, just as they are positioned to do that in Eastern Europe. We are not in the position to wage a major regional war against anyone.
That's a crazy thought. It really is this day and age to think about us engaging in a war on that level. Just asinine.
Yeah, I don't know how many ATACMs we have left, but I doubt very seriously that there are many there. And if the French are dumb enough to provide cruise missiles to these people, then the French could be on the receiving end, as I pointed out earlier. And the Germans, who thus far have said they're not going to send anything more to Ukraine, have now suddenly said they're going to provide some kind of unmanned system support. These people are begging to be destroyed. Russia is not bluffing. The Russians are not buffaloing anybody. And people in Washington still don't get it. I don't know why, but they don't.
Because they're stupid. I mean, we're getting these people out.
General staff, and you look at the map, you know that President Trump doesn't come into office until 21 January, and you have this maniac in Kiev who seems to be determined with his friends in Washington to start a war that could lead to nuclear exchange. Then you say, Mr. President, we strongly recommend we seize the river line, go all the way to the river and be done with it, and then potentially, if necessary, go into Kiev itself and eliminate this government. I think those things are now on the table, and this might well trigger it. What happens now in Eastern Europe, specifically in Eastern Ukraine, does not stay there. This has an impact on Russia's view of its relations with us everywhere. Now, you've heard these reports about North Korean troops supposedly in Eastern Ukraine. It's a total lie. There's
Sounds a lot like the weapons of mass destruction, doesn't it? Just falsifying reports that aren't true to instigate. Here we go again. Didn't think so, but yes, it seems that way.
There's no evidence to support that. The people using satellites, watching carefully, see no one on the ground that resembles anybody from North Korea. The only North Korean troops in Russia are in eastern Siberia. They are not west of the Urals, so there's none of that. This is being used as another excuse for escalating the war to the level that we are now, where we're using Army tactical missile systems with a 200-mile range. Now, if we find that any of these weapons are being launched from Germany or France or Great Britain, if we find that these weapons are coming from Germany,
And you know that they can find it too. So Russia has the ability to, obviously, it's not like they're an amateur military. They're going to know where everything is coming from as well.
Great Britain, France. I think those countries could be in for an attack. They could actually, for the first time, see their countries at war, seriously at war with Russia. Remember, Vladimir Putin always said, if you persist in this and you attack the Russian homeland, you will be at war with Russia. Now, that's a very dangerous condition to be in right now because we can't stop anything. We don't have the air and missile defense capability to stop these missiles.
Think about that for a minute. So we're this far away, very small percentage of NATO land that we can actually help protect. We can't. We're not going to be able to. And it just seems really foolish, really stupid.
But the path we're on right now is confrontation. And I think that President Trump, on one side from Biden, but yet on the other side, because of this obsession with Israel, and Israel is not defending itself. Israel's engaged in a major offensive war across the region against all of its enemies and expects us to destroy them for them.
Well, there you have it. Depressing, not good news, not anything that any of us should be excited about. I'll reiterate again the fact that 1,000 days of this war, nothing was getting accomplished. You have a guy that's coming into office, thank you, Donald Trump, who says, I'm going to put an end to this thing. And then you have Vladimir Putin that says, I'm open to talks to see what we can do to have a ceasefire, which to me is just astounding and amazing that conversation is already taking place. So what happens is our White House right now, we're going to look like total douchebags because we haven't done anything except just keep funneling money into Ukraine without accountability, of course, because they don't have to account for anything, of course, Thanks for the 60 billion. Thanks for this 80 billion. Thanks for this. Thanks for the missiles. Thanks for all this stuff. If you and I do anything in this country, we have to be accountable for it. We have to answer to it. What are they answering for? Where's the money going? What are they doing with it? Now, they potentially could be answering to it, and I don't have that information, but it just seems like that's never been discussed, to my knowledge. I don't even like watching a video like this, but I think it's important that we all become knowledgeable. And thankfully, somebody as Douglas McGregor, who's and we're just going to have to sit back and wait and see how much. The bad thing, isn't it horrible to think that we have to sit back and wait just to see how much more this White House is going to try to destroy before Trump comes in? And they're just going to leave him. They're going to hand him a big pile of shit and said, here, I'm sorry that you're going to have to clean it up now. And not only are you going to have to clean it up, but they'll blame him for it, which is just astounding. Oh my goodness. Times, crazy people. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for everybody for gaining the knowledge that I'm gaining at the same time. We can kind of grow together, learn together, and try to have an understanding of what's going here so we can be informed. And I want to try to always give proper information and proper knowledge to people. I don't want to, this is not going to be a channel where I'm doing things that are clickbaity and all this other crap, because that actually pisses me off. When somebody does anything, it's a clickbait. That's not what I'm here for. It's not what I want to do, and I don't want to deceive anybody or try to do trickery. So you're not going to get it from me. But thank you for watching. I'm Van Johnson. This is Banter Pirates, and I hope you all come back soon. And thank you for everybody that's been watching. Have a good one. Stay safe.